Hello and welcome to another Lord of the Rings Rise to War video. I'm the player who plays as the King Under the Mountain, and I suppose I've got a bit of an apology to make as I was supposed to stream my first day yesterday, but unfortunately due to a couple of different things I didn't quite get a chance to stream it, which is actually a real shame as it's arguably the best first day I've had since 2.0. The point in this video is I'm just going to go through the leaderboards, I'm going to recap on that day, probably give a couple of tips into the things I did differently, and sort of those kind of bits really, and sort of go from there. As usual, I'm playing with Dobie. I'll go straight to the leaderboards actually because it probably makes some sense. So we've just come straight out of a season, pretty much into a season. I think we had one day in between. There are some familiar faces in this server, so the sort of breakaway only team that were left of them have come into Gondor, and I think they're just trying to chill out. I think there was a lot of room that Raven wasn't going to play this season, but he is playing this season, so that's good. Linden looks quite fun, and so does Arnold with some different teams, but I'll go through that in a second. So, first things first, this is about 25 hours in, and I finished the first 24 hours just about on top, which I'm quite impressed with, to be honest. I'm normally behind Raven, but I'm probably 2,000 production up on last season, which I'm going to try and very quickly go into a couple of reasons why. I think some gear changes have helped me, and as well a little bit of pride, kind of going in some purple gear options as well has probably helped me. So that was that. Fellowships wise, DKL are top, and then Linden in general looks the strongest by a long way with the two combined teams. Arna are also pretty strong. As you see, they have 1T, that's DKAL and DKLD, so I would presume they know each other pretty well. VSOP are doing alright, only considering they've only got about 30 members, I think, in this team. 37 members, doing pretty well with that, all things considered. We're working with Echo this season that we're quite excited about, a team that we've played against in the past. Again, only 50-odd members, and we're also working with Skull. Skull have done pretty well again because there's only 55 of them as well. So, and then we recognise Hack from last season. So there's quite a few interesting teams in here. Brav are also in Erebor, and SBRT are actually in Lothlorien. So Bait in Mordor will be interesting as well because I don't think there's many of them, but I believe they are a little bit whaley. So we'll see. But if it's the team I'm thinking of, but yes, it probably doesn't look quite as challenging as the last server that we're in. However, it still looks like it's going to offer it sort of a different challenge this season. So, looking forward to seeing how it pans out. The west of the map looks quite full, so we'll see what happens over there and kind of go from there. Gear-wise, I will sort of try and explain what I did in Bag End because that's probably a place to start. From a tiles point of view, we have got a couple of 200s. I'll go through tile reports afterwards. Got a load of 150s and 130s. Quite a few 90s as well, to be honest. A couple of 60s, and then we're just slowly draining out 40s at the moment while we wait for main hall 7. I'll go gear first and then that afterwards. So as you can see from commander levels wise, because I might as well start there, we've got a lot of commanders around the level 20-ish mark. And that's purposeful with the way we've been sort of putting teams together. I'll go through that when I get into the report section. But there isn't a lot with stamina. I don't know where my gear is. So last season I was running a Reach of the Ridder mark on my damage dealer. Thankfully in Bag End from the rewards from the season, I actually got a Blazing Tongue with Might. And I managed to switch my cask as well, so I've now got a might and agility set, whereas before it was protection, I think, which was useful, but I do believe this is really helped me this season with that extra might and a little bit more damage and attack, which is always nice. Normally that set would sit on my Bjorn, but at the moment with us farming around, we're sort of switching gear around because I'm not quite whaley enough to have too many gear sets. And then my other gear set is currently sat on this lovely R4 King of Men. And I've managed to make a couple of changes to this. I managed to upgrade this helmet as well with some hammers. The Merit Sharp hammers were great, to be honest. It allowed me to sort of rework a few pieces, which was nice. So I managed to get that as a full refined piece. I've kind of developed a focus damage set, which sort of doubles up for my main with Gandalf running those two pieces. I've actually used Gandalf the Grey a lot this time round, so generally these two pieces here will be on Sauron in my main as they were last season, and these two pieces will be on Gandalf. The other thing that I will say is that with, again, having hammers, I've managed to create a kind of pretty tanky set, slowly but surely. I've got a few more langs that when I get one more hammer, I'm going to refine that a little bit more and try and get it 5-star. And that kind of leads me into my first tip with gear. Like, don't be afraid to use purples if they're better statistically. So I've been running Sauron as a tank. I've been running my Gandalfs as a tank, which I'll come on to in the reports. But I've actually been running these two pieces on them quite a lot of the time because of the unit defense. So my chess pieces haven't really got unit defense from my two kind of focus sets. And I've seen better results because of it, I would say. That, and again, some more unit defense. The call kind of does double up. I would argue the call's actually better, to be honest. But I don't know. I then miss out on the protection. So, fortitude, sorry, is what it's called these days, isn't it? So I've found that's been really useful. So my first tip is probably to not just use gold gear for the sake of using gold gear. Use the items that make sense. And we'll try and do that by going into battle reports. Pretty timely as I need to press my ring. We are ring level 24, just going up to 25. We have it set like this. So we're currently gathering stone quite a lot. So that's sort of a big thing. I wish I hadn't bothered putting the point in time after time. It's because early I'd got a few points into attack. But I suppose I can touch on that just quickly as well. So I'm still making sure we max dominance as much as we can. I will say I used Invigoration early to use some ring points. So as soon as I'd kind of got Dane down by 40 stamina on the first day, I did use Invigoration on him because otherwise I kind of waste those points. Particularly now that they've moved Extract. I mean, I don't know why you'd ever take Extract now because you get Gather first anyway. Still, we're trying to max out enormous power as much as possible so we can gather as fast as possible. So that's kind of where we're at with the ring. I'll probably reset it maybe when I get to level 30 and maybe go into here rather than there. But at the moment, that's that. Buildings-wise, I think I may just about be able to afford Main Hall 7 now, which is painful. There's no point in speeding it up because I won't be able to afford the other stuff for a chapter progression, so I'm just going to let that run. We are pretty okay on buildings, to be honest. Probably need to up these tributes a little bit more just so we get some sort of fundamentals as we go through. I don't have any Dark Embassy because we're in Erebor and I'm only going to use Dwarves pretty much all season anyway. Again, kind of okay on buildings here with the footmen, nearly at tier 3 troops, which would be nice. I think that'll probably help with the farming method. And Numenorian quarters, I've got to 2. I do like these quarters because they're cheap and they do kind of give, a couple hundred stone an hour is not exactly terrible. I am at a point where I probably need some more troops soon, to be honest. I think the barracks is looking a little bit like more Moria than I'd like it to. Yep, definitely looking a little bit like Moria, so we'll put a few troops on, I think. We haven't got any wood though, so maybe we'll gather some wood. Speaking of gather, I think it's a great little tip that they've done. I'm kind of bouncing around into different things here. Great little thing that they've done. So other people can gather off your tiles. So I took a 200 grain a while ago, so people are gathering off that. I also took a 200 ore, which was quite nice. And I believe if I look at the map, there'll be some pins as Raven has taken a stone and here we go. So Raven's taken a stone and a wood tile. I will gather off this wood tile, to be honest. I'll send Frandrel round. So between the two of us, we've got 2 200s each so far. And we're using them for the whole fellowship to gather. I think that's a really good function that they've added in, because if you are a slightly slow starter or you can't play as much, your gathering's going to be pretty good. I'll go into the reports in a minute because this is about standard for where we're at the moment, and I probably won't take another tile while I'm in the video anyway. So people are gathering off these tiles. which is quite nice. Like I say, production's going okay. Stone's up at 30k already, which I think is quite nice. Do desperately need some wood at some stage in the near future so I can build some troops, but I'm not going to be able to play for a few hours anyway soon because I've kind of maxed out on stamina for now. So I guess the thing to do at that point is go into reports. So what we've tried to do, I'll start at the beginning. So this was the first of a few of the tiles that we took. So 15, we waited till we got 2 commanders, and we started with Shadow and Saruman. I've been trying to mix focus and physical damage dealers together because of the way my gear sets work, to be honest. We then got up to 3 before we hit 30, and we were doing that at low level, introducing Dane just because otherwise he's just wasting his stamina. Build-wise, I found it, I get he's a Z7 Dane, but build-wise, I found it better to have more points in King Under the Mountain and Ironfoot early than I did in Durin's Blood, just because it hits earlier in the rounds and you're killing more enemies. And from a Shadow point of view, I kind of got Shape of the Void up as much as I could, really, without it sort of thinking it was going to fail, so it's sort of a 3/4 chance. And then Undertaker got the rest of my points, as you can probably imagine. Saruman-wise, I probably went about this the wrong way. I kind of went for Voice of Saruman because I just wanted the big hit. Arguably, I probably should have had 5 points in this, and kind of, even though it's 2 rounds, but I don't know. I kind of feel like I may have got the Saruman thing wrong, but it worked okay. So that was the first 30. First 40 introduced Bjorn. Again, I found that using his R3 and R5 were better than using Shapeshifter early. Again, they hit sooner. So it just kind of meant that I was just hitting a little bit earlier and killing off as much as I could early, and then obviously the comms are surviving. I did have about 30 troops-ish on them at this point, I think. Is that the report I just looked at? Yeah. So then we got to, again, more 40s and introducing lower level people. Again, probably about 30, 40 troops in each one, just to make sure this HP lasted. What I will say now is, with you not being able to just one troop farm, providing you get to 25-ish early on, it kind of negates the high and dry effect, which is good. There's also a different way of getting around that as well, which I'll show you with one troop farming as we kind of go through these reports. So then we were on to 60s and we introduced Gimli and a few others like Skalhelm. Again, kind of using the sort of round 1 skills with him. And Skalhelm using more of complete Nazgul, just so I'm getting that absolute burst damage in. I went into Dark Ranger just because I think most of the fights last 3 rounds anyway, but I kind of felt like that was more of a burst than Lord of the Wolves or Executioner. I know some people use Executioner, but you kind of have to get to round 5 before it starts becoming useful for me. So I kind of felt this sort of burst was a little bit better. So that was 60s, and we pretty quickly moved on to 90s, and the levels were flying up at this point, really. Again, sort of 30 troops on each, using 3 damage dealers at this stage. And then I think this was the first 130, and we needed it for chapter progression, which was an absolute pain. I had so much stamina at this stage for my mains. Well, I had over 200 stamina at this point for my mains because I was waiting for that Barracks 11 to unlock before trying to do this, but I couldn't get there. So that was okay. A little bit frustrating to lose that many troops, but it was alright. We introduced Frodo and Thorin and kind of just all the damage dealers really with one support with sort of this stage of tiling. I kind of went into the guaranteed reduction and Hobbit Adventurer rather than Ring Bearers on Frodo at the moment. I'll probably switch that when I get to 10 points. Haven't used Frodo for a little while though, but 90s were becoming pretty cool. Again, another 130, and this was with 4. I felt like this was okay, and then I kind of developed a different way of doing this in the end. So this was 2 supports and 1 troop on both of these, or I think it was actually about 20 troops on both of these. To get around the high and dry effect, if you basically fill up one of your support commanders and leave 3 single troops on the other still, it still does work, and it doesn't give you the high and dry effect because it's around your entire army, not just an individual formation. Another tip as well, Gandalf the White. I know some people do this. I max White Rider first because I think this is really important because you're getting that extra burst damage. And with White Council, if you actually look at White Council, it's only 12.6% less damage, but the rest of the scale is by focus. So you're adding about 1.8% per point. So realistically, as long as you're above 5 points in this for this stage, I would recommend going into White Rider rather than sort of maxing out White Council first. You just get more damage and it works. Sauron wise, this is a purple gear thing. I was using him as a bit of a tank. I went into the Deceiver first. I made sure I had 1 point in both of these for the stun and for the madness. Then I kind of went 9 points Deceiver and 5 points into the enemy as I've sort of strolled along. That's kind of how that's worked. I thought that was a pretty good report, to be honest. And that shows you the difference between 3 comms and 4 comms and an extra couple of levels. I think this was the first 150. Just as a quick tip, if you do get a chance, Glacier is the one to hit for a 150. Really simple tile. Again, not great losses, and probably 20-30 troops on here at this point until I realised I could probably do it slightly different. This is the 1 troop farming, I think, from what I would gather. And the good thing about the first day is if you draw, the commanders come back alive within 1 minute. So by the time this draw had finished, all 3 of those commanders were alive anyway. I think these only had 1 troop on, possibly. Yeah, so this was 1 troop farming. So you basically max out your support commander, and then just put 1 troop on the others, and it still works. You get around the high and dry effect. If your gear's good enough, it does work. And we've kind of mixed and matched in different people, making sure we've kept this 2 physical and 1 elemental damage dealer. Some reports go better than others, but that's still not bad losses considering this is very much a B team for me. And Gandalf the Grey, I have max White Council here because I may as well. I suppose I could probably have gone into, once I'd got 5 points in Wizard, I probably could have maxed out Wizard and got a little bit more damage out of Gandalf, but he hasn't got any damage sort of weapons and accessories, so I don't know. I do kind of do him a little bit differently, I suppose. And then I started playing around with Falcon and kind of really enjoyed it. So I went for a really tanky formation of Falcon and Frodo. Falcon running the R5 and a little bit of the R1. And Frodo using this random focus piece because I hadn't got anything else with unit defense. Noldor Sword still pretty good, even though it has got a lot of focus because you've got plus 18 and 198 command with what I've got. So, yeah, that worked pretty well. I enjoyed that, the double tank. Introduced Witch King again as a damage dealer with full Nazgul and his R1. So that was pretty cool. Good burst damage. Used Falcon a lot during that stage. And it was pretty fun. Again, mixing in this sort of 2 damage dealers and 2 supports when I was using Falcon, but he did take a pepper in here, but that was mainly really because I decided to accidentally make some axe throwers because I'd probably been online a little bit too much at that point. Again, kind of a lot of fun I've had with that. So, sort of going to the formations and kind of clicking into these now, I'm still using, this is an R4 King of Men. Don't get me wrong, the gear's good. But still putting out decent damage because his skills are in the R1 and the R3. Shadow again doing good damage. And we're kind of farming with, like I say, 1 troop on each of these and sort of maxing out Gandalf. This is quite a tricky tile, actually. Hergon seems to survive really well, and Dwalin hits pretty hard. But as you can see from all these, I've just been swapping different commanders in and out, but making sure that I've got enough damage. To be honest, if this wasn't King of Men, if it was my Bjorn or my Dane, I tend to do 150s rather than 130s because I know that they're capable of doing that. But I've used a lot of commanders this time round and had a lot of fun. And using these couple of purple items, to be honest, have really changed the sort of fortune of my results. The one that's annoying me is probably Scalhelm because she should be doing better in my opinion, particularly with the unique, although the unique probably needs some levels. Um, but that's kind of where, all these reports are pretty similar. They'll just have different commanders in where I've mixed and matched them in. I haven't got set formations at this point. It's just whatever's free. This was a bad one by looks things. Pretty much everyone died, that's why. I think I may have actually nearly forgot to put gear on then, which I haven't done that much of. This was the second 200, which wasn't as successful as the first. So this is 3 damage dealers, and I won't try this again because Scalhelm basically just melts troops, which is fun. So we got through the first one, and then the second result isn't terrible considering we were only at 1800 HP. Again, Scalhelm murdered all the troops. But then again, she probably doesn't like dwarves or elves looking at the pictures, so it is what it is. I noticed the pikemen were in here as well, which I hadn't seen very often. So yeah, so that was the second 200, which I kind of probably got a bit cocky using 3 damage dealers, I would guess. This was one of those 150s again with 1 troop, where again, if I've got Bjorn in there, I've been trying to do 150s. Where's that other 200? Don't you know where the other 200 is? Definitely want this longer ago. Where have I breezed past? Oh, is that it? Yeah. So this was the first result, which was really good. This army seems to be okay, even though it's got Hergon in it. Hergon's quite good at this sort of point in the game, I find. Depending on what troops he's got, though, I guess. If he's got Knights, ironically, he's pretty good. But yeah, so that was the first result. I was pretty happy with that. And then Gimli always hits hard on tiles, I find, or his sort of formation does. He hasn't hit me very hard there, but always feels like he does okay. Boromir, out damaging him and Eowyn. Fair enough. But I always find that one hard. So that's kind of the 200s that I've took. I am struggling a little bit for troops at this stage. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. So the gear is sort of set now as where it is. I just need one more accessory to basically max out the pipe is the next job. So I'll be maxing out this pipe. When it comes to PvP, I will be switching the Lang out and giving him the Reach of the Riddermark back for the initiative. But for now, it makes more sense to use the Lang because he's using it for unit defense, so makes more sense that way. We'll just see if I have dropped a second. I can't be far off. Still just about there. But with everyone catching me up. And I don't think there was an awful lot else I kind of wanted to flick through, really. But I just kind of wanted to put those few tips out there because this is definitely the best way that I've done things for a very long time. Using a support or 2 supports and some damage dealers. Even if it's sort of like an R4 King of Men. I've been really impressed with Thorin. He's done pretty good stuff for me so far. I mean, Dane and Bjorn have obviously been the sort of highlights, but yeah, we've leveled pretty well so far, so I'm quite happy with where I'm at. If I was to probably change a few things again, I may have been a little bit bolder at the start with a few people. I didn't use Witch King enough. Because he's pretty good at tiling early on because of his Nazgul skill. But that's kind of where I'm up to. So it's just really just to do a brief update. I will try and do a stream tomorrow, possibly. And also I've got something a little bit different to do at some stage soon, which is Porky actually recorded him opening 1,000 Mathams on the Bjorn chest, so we're going to kind of talk through that at some stage and put that online to see what he got, which is pretty cool. As always, really appreciate people using the top-up link, which I'll kind of link in the description, and I'm hoping to do another giveaway in the next week or so probably look out for that. Although there is still a couple of prizes not claimed from the first one, which surprises me, so hopefully have a look, see what you can get. In the meantime, as always, if in doubt, always follow your nose.